Hey everybody, welcome to Module 8. Congratulations, you made it. You made it to the last week of the semester. This is just crazy to me. It feels like we just started a week or two ago. Here we are at the very end. We're trying to wrap things up. So let's talk about what we got going on this unit, and let's really focus and try to finish really strong here this week. Hey, so the unit Module 8 is the overview, is making your arguments count. So what we've done is we've talked a lot about, here's what I think that this source says, and here's how I reacted to this source, and and then being able to being critical and comparing and contrasting and being, taking those critical looks at the text. Now we're formulating our argument. We're formulating our belief. And part of that is bringing in those sources to validate and prove and back up what you're trying to say. So when we think about making our arguments count here, what we really want to try to do is make sure that we have a very solid, believable, realistic position. That position is clear and emphatic, and there is no question as to where we stand on this. And then we prove why we believe this, right? We bring in these sources to validate our position. We bring in sources to explain the problem, and we bring in sources to show what those solutions are, right? And the big piece here is that we want to make sure that we are backing up what we say. Okay, we want to be able to prove what we're saying, because if you make that argument, if you don't have those sources to back that up, then people aren't going to buy into that, right? So you really need to have those sources that validify your position. Okay, let's take a look at the assignments that we have this week. You last week already put in your half draft. Once you turned in the first version of your paper, the half paper, you were to have posted a copy of that in Module 7. So this week, what we're going to do is do those peer reviews, those peer responses. Now, the thing about this is that you're going to want to get onto those now. You're going to want to get onto those and do those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because for them to be useful to the original poster, they're going to have them in advance. They're going to have them, so that they can utilize the feedback that you're giving them, right? So look at as many drafts as you can. Let's think about being very intentional about the ones that we pick. Those should be ones that, first off, you kind of have a good understanding of what they're saying, that you understand the topic, you understand what they're talking about, and you kind of have a sense of where they're coming from, and you kind of have a position on your own. That will help you be able to really critique what they're saying. Also look for people that don't have as many responses, right? We want to try to spread these out and get as many different people, as much feedback as we can. So if you see somebody with 7, 8, 10 responses, go to somebody else that only has 1 or 2, right? Let's try to really spread these out. Once you've read the drafts, when you pick the 2 that you would like to do and you review them and you kind of get a good sense of what is being said there, then you need to come down here and you need to answer at least 3 of these 5 questions: A, B, C, and D, E. And when you do that, go ahead and put the letter in, and then fully, then you can put in your answer next to it, right? That way the original writer knows what you're really wanting to focus on. It doesn't matter which of those you choose. You can choose any of those 5, but you got to pick 3 of them, okay? Some things to think about as you are offering your feedback. Obviously, we want to focus on the work and how they portrayed the message. We don't need to get into a discussion or debate about the topic and if it's right or wrong, their position. You want to look at that and say, you stated it very clearly. You really backed it up. These are some places where I needed some more information to really understand this. Thinking about the organization and, was it put in an order that really helped build that argument, right? So think about those kinds of things. We'd want to avoid getting into a discussion about the topic and really focus on the paper in front of us, okay? Again, please remember that we are looking for you to give fully developed answers that stand on their own, and to be really helpful to the original writer, be able to point back into the text where what you are referring to. If you're talking about, the point that you made that was really the strongest for me was, and describe that point so we know where we're coming from, right? That will make it much more useful to the original writer. Okay. We then get just again some repeat instructions on the Module 8 writing project number 3. Again, you're going to see this called the argument. It's also called the researched essay. You will see that in both of them, the research argument. You will see it called both of that realistically. And then down here, research argument essay, so that you really get to see it in 3 different ways. When we look at this, so some things that we're really looking for. First off, it's an introduction that really draws us in. So if you look at those half drafts, that's the comments I made on that. We really want to make sure that you get the reader's attention, right? And you're drawing them in. You're showing them what this topic is, or you're giving them something to think about, right? You want to be careful with questions in the introduction because the questions have to be thought-provoking, not questions that if they answer one way, they just quit reading, right? And then inside of that introduction, you have a strong thesis statement. Now, the thesis statement very clearly states the problem, clearly indicates your position on it, and might even lean toward the solution. Now, maybe you may not get all of that in there, but it should be very clear what the problem is that you're going to be focusing on and where you're coming from. Like, what is your stance here? What belief do you have on this, right? That thesis statement should really deliver that. Things that the thesis statement will not do, it will not include I, or this paper will. The argument is, the main point is, the solution. We want to really avoid those kind of obvious type of statements. In the introduction, you might have first and second person references. I, you, us, we. Those are okay-ish in the introduction. If you're trying to really make those personal connections, it's not a guarantee that you have to use them. But once you get into the paper, we really want to avoid those because that really starts to make the paper really casual. Another thing, as you're writing these arguments and you're building your argument and you're really developing the body of the paper, you really want to avoid typing as if you were talking. So when people might type like, well, what would you think about this? That would be like if I was having a conversation with somebody, but inside that paper, that just comes across as too casual. So we really want to portray, we really want to kind of, deliver that expert professional tone to the readers. When it comes to arrangement, organization, the flow of your paper, the things that we're really looking for here is that you easily move from point to point, that there's a hierarchy. That there is like, this is the big thing, and this is the second big thing, and this is the third biggest thing, right? That there's a hierarchy, that there's there's like most important kind of working its way down, or working its way up, depending on which organization you have, right? But we see that everything isn't competing for attention, right? Like you kind of have a sense of, we're focusing on this, and then we're going to focus on this, then we're going to focus on this. And the arrangement, the organization of the paper should really help build that argument, right? You really want to think about what is the best way to get your reader to buy into what you're trying to say. Now, once we talk about the actual format of the paper, you may use APA or MLA style. Either one of those is fine. You do have to have at least 3 different cited sources in your paper. That is 3 different sources cited at least once each, not one source cited 3 times. And that you have that in-text citation. Some really helpful things when you integrate other people's words, thoughts, and ideas into your paper. It's really beneficial when you build up the credentials, you lead into the quote, You give us the quote with the citation or the paraphrase in the citation, and then you comment on it afterwards. In other words, you give an explanation of what does it say that really backs up your paper, right? So that we show why and how it is part of the paper. If you look down here at the final draft notes, you're looking at 1,250 words. I've said this before and I will repeat this. Word counts are targets. I won't be going through counting the words unless it feels really short or really long. If it's really short, I have to ask myself, is the message complete? There are times when people can produce a really solid, meaningful, well-explained paper that's under the word count, and that's okay. Likewise, there's times when it may take you over the word count. But where you get in trouble is where you don't have much depth, you don't have much explanation, you don't have much development, and therefore the paper is really short. Or you just repeat and repeat and repeat, and you're rehashing and you're going over the same thing over and over, and then it becomes too long. So the word count is a target, but when you go over or under, then we have to really take a look at why, and does that why impact, how what happened? Okay, that is the instructions of the paper. That gives you kind of a sense of what you need to be doing. Again, you're probably pretty familiar with that already. You've seen those instructions before. We do have a reflection activity, and this is like the final, okay? And this is due Sunday night, okay? So the paper will be due Friday. This reflection is due Sunday. Now, the reflection asks you to do two things. First off, look at the course objectives. So these were the course objectives that we provided to you at the beginning, what now seems like, just yesterday, 8 weeks ago. And I want you, and it asks you to really think about where you are. Which of these helped you the most? What really do you see as some skill that you're going to be able to take with you and go from here, right? Like you're really going to be able to do more and more with it. The second part then is a reflection back on what did you do that you think really helped you develop that? What did you do that really helped you become a better writer? Or what is the skill what is the thing that we did that gave you a skill that you think that you either needed to work on or enhance, or really gave you a sense of accomplishment? So we're looking here, first off, which course objective do you feel that you really got the most out of? And then what was the activity that really helped you develop this? This is 300 words. It's a page. It doesn't need to be overly long. MLA or APA style it is good, but it is not required in this paper. As you can see, that is not part of the requirement. It's looking about a page, okay? You are welcome to do this in advance. You can do this at any time. It is due on that Sunday. Then we get to the submission of the researched argument. Okay. And again, this is, it gives you some overview of what the instructions are. If you have questions about like, did it submit, or I couldn't get it to submit, if you have problems, make sure you're reaching out to me so that we can get that. And we want to make sure that you get that submitted. We then come up to, we wrap everything up with a course evaluation. And this asks you about your experience in the class, the makeup in the class, the structure, how I did. This is taken very seriously on a lot of different fronts. First off, the big piece that is used from this is what needs to be done to structure and build this course moving forward, right? Like what are some of the structural things we need to do moving forward? That's a big thing. And we really want to make sure that we continue to deliver meaningful course content in a way that is effective and is helpful and is intuitive and is easy to use, right? They do also, or you may also get some questions about, how I did, or, what kind of things I did for you, and your evaluation of those. Some things to think about there is that, I never get to see any individual responses. So if I ever see responses from these surveys, they are in aggregate, meaning I get like an overview. I will get like distilled comments, like some things that students said were right, but they're not word for word or directly quoted. They'll be paraphrased, they'll be reworded or something. Generally, I don't get to see anything like that. These things are taken into consideration when I get my evaluations. It's not like an automatic, like you think I did an amazing job and they automatically rehire me. It's not quite directly like that, but it is something that is included in the process. So there are a lot of people that take a look at this. There are a lot of people that take this very seriously, and they ask that you take it very seriously as well. And then finally, you get to the end, the last stop, right? So, I just have to say again that, it is amazing, the work that you guys have done. You guys have done so much good stuff. You guys have stuck with it. You've kept up with it. That is awesome. And I want you to continue doing that, and I want you to finish up strong. Again, this is our last week. The argumentative paper, the researched argumentative paper, is due on Friday. You do want to get that done. That gives me the time to get that graded. Sunday night is the reflection piece. Again, you want to get that in because you don't want a zero going in. Sunday night is the deadline for the course. So at that time, I cannot take any other work. Now, I am in Central Time. I know many of you are in Eastern Time, and that is fine. So we can just go with, Central Time, midnight. But at that point, I really do have to cut everything off because that's just the end of the quarter or the end of the semester, right? So that is the deadline. After that point, I really cannot take anything else. When you are looking back, you want to make sure that you have grades for everything that you've submitted. You want to make sure that all of those are in and correct and right. If you have any questions about your grade, this week is the week to get those answered. Once I submit grades, and I will do that Tuesday morning, I have until Tuesday at noon to submit my grades. Once I submit those, I cannot change them on my own. I am glad to do that for you, but I can't do it on my own. And so what has to happen is that I get a form, it goes to a person who signs it and passes it and passes and passes. And there's 4 different people that have to physically work this form. And so, it is a lot easier for you to have the grade correct before it goes in. So if there's any questions about your grade, please make sure to get those answered before the end of the semester. This is our last week. Please make sure that if you have questions or you need help, that you're reaching out. We want to make this not only a strong finish, but a positive experience. I know a lot of times that people will remember the end of the semester much more than they remember the beginning of the semester. And, not that it has to be a perfect situation, but I do want to make sure that, that you find that this was a enjoyable experience and a valuable experience, something that you got benefit out of, right? So if there's anything you need this week, please let me know. Email is still the best way to go. jdwells@ivtech.edu. Okay. So anyway, guys, have a great week. I hope that you guys are, I don't know about excited about finishing it up, but I know that, you guys are feeling good about what you've done and are ready to turn in that research paper and show us what you have learned from this semester. Good luck, everybody.